What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, however you're watching, however you are following, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or for free on the iHeartRadio app, or you are putting a face to the voice and you're watching on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We've officially passed some pretty significant marks on YouTube. Maybe we'll talk about those later in the show. Maybe we won't. A little bit different of a Ben Garcia show. Benstant reaction, an instant reaction to breaking news, something massive that goes on in the sports world. And on this Friday afternoon, we have a doozy. Jalen Brunson makes history in the NBA in something we have never seen before in the NBA. Sure, we see guys ring chase sometimes and go take a vet minimum. We remember not Ray Allen, but it was like Mike Miller and Shane Battier years ago joining the Miami Heat from the Memphis Grizzlies, if I'm not mistaken. Again, the details aren't super important. We've seen guys take pay cuts before, but it's different. It's almost always later on in their career on the back nine. And it's usually at most, and I mean at most, $10 million. But it's usually a $5 million pay cut. You've already made your money. You've already set yourself up for life. Now you'd like to try to set apart from everyone else with your legacy. Jalen Brunson didn't do that. Jalen Brunson did something so massive. There's only one other thing similar to it in sports. Jalen Brunson took a massive pay cut, accepts $156.5 million on his new extension. That is $113 million less if he would have waited 1 year from now. And you could say, whoa, it's just because what if he gets injured? If Jalen Brunson gets injured, outside of tearing an ACL, he's still getting that number next year. He's still getting that number next year. This is a massive development in the NBA space. We've never seen anything like this before. And it's so fitting that the person that trailblazes this new route of winning is a guy who you look at it and you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Jalen Brunson, the Villanova guy. That's who he is. Jalen Brunson cited, we've seen guys in sports take less and win championships. It's very simple. I will never knock anyone for taking money. I'm not going to knock Dak Prescott for taking an absurd amount of money, but I am going to blame you when things don't go as well in the postseason because you are the main culprit, because you are taking $50 million a year that you could allocate to your offensive line, that you could allocate to your cornerbacks, that you could allocate to whatever. And I've always harped on that. I'll never, ever get on anyone for taking more money because you want to be comfortable. You only have a certain amount of time you can make this money. But I will hold you accountable if you continuously come up short in the playoffs because you are the main culprit. You didn't have to take the bag, but you did. Jalen Brunson, now poor guy, he's only got $156.5 million richer to his name. But what he did is a massive development, selfless, and is going to put this team in a position to win a championship. The New York Knicks are going to win a championship because of this contract. Because they're not going to be hamstrung in the free agent market where they can't go get guys, or they're not going to be hamstrung because they can't go re-sign Dante DiVincenzo later on or Mikal Bridges later on, whose contract I think is up in 2 years. This is exactly what you want to see from your star player. I've been quoted before. I don't think Jalen Brunson can win you a championship as your number one. But when I see something like this, it's very Tom Brady-esque. If you'd asked me 25 years ago, I wouldn't have been alive, but if you would ask me 25 years ago, is Tom Brady going to win a championship? I said, of course he's not. But then you ask me 20 years later, I'm like, of course. He's got the right mindset. He's got the correct way of winning a championship. He knows how to win a championship. He takes less money. And it's very simple in sports. Very rarely you can have both. But if you thread this needle, you can have both. But in most instances, you can either get paid or you can cement your legacy. It's almost never both. Tom Brady's the only guy that's done it. A guy that's taken pay cut after pay cut after pay cut after pay cut, and now Patrick Mahomes is starting to go down that route as well. But only Tom Brady has taken pay cut after pay cut after pay cut after pay cut, and it continuously showed in the results why it was the right thing to do. And now you have Patrick Mahomes basically following the same exact landscape, the same exact idea that Tom Brady was doing. If I just take less, I could cement my legacy as potentially the greatest player of all time. Now, Jalen Brunson's not going to be the greatest player of all time, but he's absolutely on a track to be the greatest Knick of all time. And that's a pretty great, quote-unquote, consolation prize to not being the greatest player of all time. If you could be the best player of any franchise, it would probably go in this order: Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers, New York Knicks. The three biggest markets, or close to the biggest markets in the NBA. And the Knicks don't have any history. They're not winning championships. They're not a winning culture of a team. They're not winning all the time. They were a dysfunctional organization before Jalen Brunson showed up. And Jalen Brunson is exactly what you want in your star/superstar. And it's changing my thoughts on Jalen Brunson. Maybe you can win a championship with this guy as your number one. I am all in on the New York Knicks. This is a team that was so dysfunctional for years. Dysfunctional in the way they draft, dysfunctional in the way they play, dysfunctional in the way they trade for players, dysfunction in the front office. And it is crazy how just one player, one mature star/superstar tier level player can change all of that. Jalen Brunson shows up and they go from a mediocrity for about a decade to instantly a championship contender. And Jalen Brunson has set a new route in the NBA. He's taking over $100 million less. Whenever we see this, it's vet minimum guys later in their career who have already been comfortable in terms of money, who have already made their bag, who have already made enough money for them to be able to spend and never go broke. And then they go and ring chase. Jalen Brunson's doing it the complete opposite way. I'll get my money. It'll come. If you're great at what you do in pretty much any space, you will make money. You will. There will always be money for you. You're not going broke. And Jalen Brunson sees that. Jalen Brunson sees something greater than himself. He went from, it's not about me, he's setting the culture of, it's about we in the New York Knicks. Do you know what it does when your best player takes $100+ million less? Do you know what it does in the locker room? Oh man, this guy's really serious about winning. Well, I can't make more than him. Okay, well, I'll take a pay cut too. And now you have Mikal Bridges on this team. You have Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, the New York Nova Knicks. It is a new Knicks team. This is a new organization as a whole. This wasn't the New York Knicks I grew up on. They were dysfunctional. They were lost. They didn't know how to draft. They didn't know how to trade. They didn't know how to put a winning standard of basketball on the court. Jalen Brunson shows up and changes everything. Instantly championship contenders. I'll take less, guys. Don't worry about me. I'll take $100 million less. Setting the culture in the locker room of other players saying, well, I can't make more than Jalen Brunson. I'll take less. I'll stay here. Let's win a championship. You can either make as much money as you can, or take a little less, or in this case, a lot less, to help cement your legacy. And Jalen Brunson, although won't be the greatest player of all time in the NBA, although Jalen Brunson will never be seen as the GOAT of the National Basketball Association, never be seen as the greatest in basketball, Jalen Brunson will be seen as the best Knick of all time. And that's a huge deal for the New York Knicks. That's a huge deal for Jalen Brunson. That's a huge deal for this organization that has been in utter turmoil and chaos. Jalen Brunson is setting in the footsteps of players like Tom Brady, of players like Patrick Mahomes. This has never been seen in the NBA. And for those that think it will be a now popular idea to try to win, you're wrong. Basketball has never been about we. It's the AAU culture. It's about me. It's about the spoiled athlete. It's about the shower you with praise. It's about the Players Association that is so strong. That is why they make so much more money than the players in the NFL who have a weak Players Association. It's about the star. It's about the popularity of the player. Jalen Brunson said, nuh-uh. It's not about me. It's about we. It's a elite culture to set in your locker room. It's an elite precedent to set in your locker room. And the New York Knicks are an organization that I have never bought into. But I am fully on the New York Knicks train. They are going to win a championship at some point during this contract because of how much less money Jalen Brunson took, because of how much flexibility they will now have because of Jalen Brunson. And like I've said before, Jalen Brunson might not be the greatest basketball player of all time, might not be seen as the best NBA player of all time, but he's sure as heck on the way of being seen as the greatest New York Knick of all time. And as of right now, he's the king of New York. He's the king of New York City. He's the king of Madison Square Garden. And that is why it is so impressive what Jalen Brunson did today. It is so impressive, and it's like something we've never seen before. And I don't think we will see it very often, especially in the NBA.